Assalamualaikum and good evening to Sir Kamarul bin Muhammad Nasir Mukri. Today I and my team to represent this slide to you. So this is a member of this group, which is Muhammad Iqmal Nur Hakim, Ahmad Zashroki bin Zainuddin is me, Muhammad Irfan, Nur Raihan, Nur Faizah Jamila and Nur Ezrida Shikin. This slide have introduction, audit planning, audit findings, proposal to control hazards, and closing plan. Firstly, introduction. 1.1, background of the case. The incident occurred at a shipyard that specialized in fiberglass boat construction. One employee in the fiberglass laminating division has been diagnosed with a lung illness because of prolonged exposure to toxic chemical vapors. 1.2, scope of the audit. Must obey the standard operating procedure (SOP) while doing the job. Second one, the cause of hazardous is from fiberglass laminating areas. And the last one, we have safety, health and environmental in fiberglass laminating. 1.1, purpose of the audit. A, to identify the hazardous from fiberglass laminating area. B, employees must know how to avoid risk when doing the work. C, to determine the potential hazardous impact. And D, to monitor the safety and environment and approve safety measurement by assessing and amending any new requirement. Next, I will pass to Iqmal Nur Hakim to continue this slide.
Number 2 is audit planning. So this is a table of audit planning. This start 6 November 2021. So the table content is the task audit and chemical and audit form, preparing audit checklist, distributing and collecting audit checklist, preparing audit form, distributing and collection audit form, substitution answer. This worksite properties, invasion of top management, tour of worksite, impatient. Next slide. 2.2 task and responsibility. Task prepare and distribute check missed audit form, workplace site visit, PPE inspection, vending inspection, material inspection, person in charge, office worker, top management and task force and 2 worker, task force and 2 worker, responsibility for prepare and distributed checklist audit form is the audit checklist and audit form should be prepared, distributed and recollected. Responsibility for workplace and visit to see and impact the condition of the place of and work, to impact their working condition. PPE inspection to ensure the safety and condition of the PPE is in working and maintained properly. For vent inspection to ensure that the air, gases and first air flowing properly through the vent. Material inspection to ensure proper placement of the material in the correct order and to be safe from any damage. 2.3 audit checklist. Have you been given copy of health and safety material manual? Have hazard been identified, qualified and controlled? Are safety data sheets and written safe work procedurally accessible? This adequate ventilation and housekeeping practice? Is there concern regarding hazardous chemicals such as paint, glues and new carpet? 2.4 audit form. Do you understand the guideline? Did you always keep the PPE properly? Did you get a workplace safety guideline and maintaining your PPE guideline? Have you read the workplace safety guideline? Are you comfortable with the work environment? So I will pass next chapter to Muhammad Irfan.
So number 3, audit finding. Type of hazard in material safety data sheet, MSDS. Type of hazard, Acutely toxic substances such as poisons and highly concentrated acids, which have an immediate and severe toxic effect. Acute toxicity, skull and crossbone. Moderate hazard. This symbol indicate that hazardous product with this pictogram can cause certainly health effect, for example, skin irritation, eye irritation, and or skin sensitization. Health hazard. The health hazard pictogram indicate a product contain chemicals that may cause health effect in humans, including cancer, genes mutation, reproductive health effect, respiratory sensitivity, and organ toxicity. Next, risk assessment. Step 1. Assisting the assessor, the employer of a place of work is to appoint an assessor who the knowledge and basic skill in doing an assessment. The appointed assessor must be given the authority to do the work, should have enough resources to gather information, consult the appropriate people, review existing record, and examine the workplace. The employer should be aware of the elimination in the experience and knowledge of the personnel conducting an assessment and should be willing to engage specialist assistance if necessary. Step 2. Gather information about chemicals, the work and work practices. The purpose of this step is identify all chemicals hazardous to have found in the workplace and to gather information about the work and work practices involving chemicals hazardous to health. Step 3. Divide into work units. An expectation of the work areas where chemicals are used, handled, or released into the working environment is necessary before the workers are divided into work units for assessment. During this inspection, identify where and how chemicals hazardous to health are used or handled or released. Who are exposed to the chemical hazardous to health and how they are exposed. Step 4. Determine degree of hazard. Identify all the chemical hazardous to health to which work the unit is exposed, either from the chemical used or handled by the work unit or chemicals released from the work activities. Risk assessment. Step 5. Evaluate exposure. The purpose of this step are the access to exposure of the work unit to each of the chemicals hazardous to health use handled by or exposed to the work unit and at the same time assess the adequacy of the existing control measure. Step 6. Assessment adequacy of control measure. The presence of adequacy of existing control measure are evaluated for each work unit. This assessment is to be conducted simultaneously with the exposure assessment. The adequacy of existing control measure is assessed by inspecting the existing control measures, taking record of air, sampling, biological monitoring, and taking record on the inspection, testing, and examination of control equipment. Step 7. Including the assessment, conclude the assessment for each work unit. This will be useful in determining whether action to work risk to need to be identified before including the assessment. The assessor need to consider the following. A. Whether there is sufficient of information to decide on the degree of hazard. B. Whether there is certainty in evaluating or estimating the degree of exposure. C. Whether the risk is significant or not significant. D. Whether the existing control measures are adequate. The risk to hazardous chemical is evaluated by combining the hazard rating and the exposure rating to give the risk rating. A risk rating of 3 or greater is significant, while below the risk is considered as not significant. Step 8. Identify action to be taken. Identify problem actions to be taken, including suggesting further precaution and control measure based on the conclusion of assessment from step 7. Step 9. Reporting the assessment. According of an assessment is important because it will be useful for purpose of follow-up action, review, and appliances with legal requirement. The USECHS Regulation 2000 stipulates the assessors must submit a report to the employer within one month of the completion of the assessment. The information to be recorded the name report included: A. Name and address of the workplace. B. Particulars of chemical being assessed, including their hazard description and hazard rating. C. Description of work unit. D. A particular of the workplace assessment, including exposure description and rating and adequacy of existing control measures. E. Risk evaluation and conclusion of the assessment. F. Recommendation for further action. G. Date of the CHRA. And H. Name and position of the assessor or assessor team. The assessor should not only submit but also present the assessment report to the employer. The employer to inform and highlight its findings and recommendations. Step 10. Review assessment. This assessment will not be applicable for all times and changing situations. Therefore, the assessment needs to be reviewed from time to time. The USECSS Regulation 2000 stipulates the requirement for reviewing and assessment. Related legislation of guidance related to the hazardous chemicals. Class, class regulation. The Occupational Safety and Health Certification Labeling Safety Data Sheet of Hazardous Chemicals Regulation 2013 class regulation has been gathered on 11th October 2030. The class regulation promulgated under the Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994, Act 514 has replaced the Occupational Safety and Health Classification, Packaging and Labeling of Hazardous Chemicals Regulation 1997 EPL regulation. The main objective of the class regulation is to ensure supplier of hazardous chemicals provide sufficient information of hazard of chemicals to that they supply so as they mitigate the risk of accident happening in the workplace, thus providing a safe and healthy working environment and conditions. The responsibility of supplier as stated in the class regulation are to do classification, labeling, preparation of the safety data sheet, packaging, chemical inventory, and including principal supplier, that is supply who formulate, manufacture, import, recycle of reformulate hazardous chemicals, and subsidiary supplier, that is supplier who repack, distribute, or retail hazardous chemicals. The CL2 regulation was previously used as mechanism to control the supply of hazardous chemicals to the workplace. In Malaysia, it came into force on 15 April 1997. However, with the adoption of the globally harmonized system of the classification and labeling of chemicals (GSS) worldwide, Malaysia has taken proactive measures to implement the GSS at the workplace through the promulgation of class regulation to replace the current CLP regulation. Next, I will pass to Nurhan.
You 4.0 Proposal to Control Hazard. 4.1 Technique for the Hazard Control. Number 1 is elimination. Number 2 is substitution. Number 3, engineering control. Number 4, administrative control. Number 5, personal protective equipment, PPE. 4.2, methods to control the hazard. Elimination the hazard. Elimination of the hazard is not always achievable through it does totally remove the hazard and thereby eliminates the risk of exposure. An example of this would be the petrol station attendants in Ireland are no longer exposed to the risk of chronic lead poisoning following the removal of lead from petrol products sold at forecourt. Substitute the hazard with a lesser risk. Substituting the hazard may not remove all the hazards associated with the process of activity and may introduce different hazards, but the overall harm or health effect will be lessened. In laboratory research, toluene is now often used as a substitute for resin. The solvent properties of the two are similar, but toluene is less toxic and it is not categorized as a carcinogen, although toluene can cause several metallurgical harm. Next, methods to control hazard. This is the table of example of substitution. Instead, there are six things. Isolate the hazard. Isolating the hazard is achieved by restricting access to plant and equipment, or in the case of substances, locking them away under strict control. By using certain chemicals, then a fume cardboard can isolate the hazard from the person. Similarly, placing noisy equipment in a non-accessible enclosure or room isolate the hazard from the person. 4.3, schedule and timeline for action of hazard control. There are 4 timelines of December 2021. For 10 of December 2021, action for the hazard control is preparing workers for the new shift rotation and work hour. 11 of December 2021, briefing all fiberglass personnel about the new shift rotation and working hours and the use of PPE. 12 of December 2021, all polystyrene needs to be collected and prepared by the Department of Occupational Safety and Health, Malaysia DOS, for disposal according to the guidelines. 13 of December 2021, intake of new chemicals, advisory and storage in a safe place. 4.4, financial implication for hazard control. This is table financial allocation for hazard control. There are 3 items that use for this financial. There is PPE set, respiratory mask, eye protector and glove. Number 2, a poison resin, 5 liter per can. Number 3, National Anti-Drug Agency consolation. For PPE set, they order units 55 set for Resin, they order 140 hands. And their the total of financing allocation for hazard control is 27,750. PPE set is ordered by the manufacturer new to replace the old PPE equipment used for laminating section of fiberglass. 55 sets of PPEs are ordered at the price of 180 ringgit per set and a total cost of 9,900 for each package. The new chemical substance that resin have been ordered to replace the old chemical substance with 5 liters per can for about 140 cans and priced at 120 per unit. For 120 cans of resin, the total cost are 60,800. Another 1,050 will be used to purchase hampers and goodies that will be given to the National Anti-Drug Agency (NADA) as a gift of appreciation from the company for their cooperation during the fiberglass limiting section worship personnel medical test process. A total of one of a total of 27,700 a total of 27,750 will be spent to ensure workplace safety and the environment of the personnel. Next, I will give it to Faiza.
Closing plan. Five point one hazards monitoring schedule. Starting on December 12, 2022, the supervisor will perform monthly regular checks and inspections to ensure that all staff involved or working in the fiberglass workshop, particularly those in the laminating fiberglass area, are appropriately enforcing the risk control. A daily check and inspection schedule is provided below. Table 7 Hazards Monitoring Schedule. Every day before end shift. Inspection of new hazard to risk. Shop working condition. Check every person's entry log that comes in and out of the fiberglass workshop. Every week, inspecting and analyzing the preceding hazard that occur in work if it is under control. Prepare potential hazard reports. Give the Department of Safety and Health briefings on workshop and personnel conditions. Every 2 weeks, PPE condition and maintenance inspection. Briefing all staff on the safety awareness. Next. 5.2 Post Hazard Control Audit Checklist. Checklist to be done. Is the working condition getting better? Is the PPE properly maintained and utilized? Is the staff in good condition? Is the working site getting better? Are there new hazard threats that pose a danger to employees and occupational safety and health? Does it raise the risk of hazard? Thank you. That's all from us.